Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Not Your Average Joe. So, today we are actually on episode 34, and I would like to welcome back Caitlyn to my podcast. This is actually her fifth time on here. The first time she was on here was on episode 5, where me, Caitlyn, and my friend Deanna, we talked about the topic of loneliness. And then the second time she was on here, it was episode 8 where me and Caitlin, along with two other guests, Alex and Dell, we talked about music, which was a really fun topic. And I look forward to doing part two at some point. We still haven't gotten to it yet due to conflicting schedules and all that, but we will get to it sooner or later, hopefully sooner. And then the third time she was on here was episode 11, where we talked about things that Christians do that can be debatable. We talked about a couple different subtopics in there. And then one was Halloween, I remember, and then the other one was on tattoos. So that was the first part of that topic. And then the last time she was on here was on episode 18, where we talked about the second part of things that Christians do that can be debatable, which we talked about yoga, and then we also talked about like the astrology, the horoscopes, the zodiac signs. That's what I was trying to think of, like I'm finding the right words. So yeah, we're that's what we talked about. Had really good conversations out of all of that. So definitely be sure to check those 4 episodes out if you haven't yet. So I definitely, I'm glad that Caitlin is here. So, and it looks like she's at a really beautiful location. So welcome back and thank you for joining.
I'm glad to be here. This location is actually part of my church. The land that our church owns. We just recently built our church building over here. We used to have a building that was sorry, wait a minute, people. It was probably about 10 minutes from here. I don't do mileage, but yeah, it we finally got to get moved over here, and I spend every Sunday out here. This is my favorite place. This is my favorite place. Before we moved over here, I would come and just hang out by myself before we had all the cool picnic tables and stuff that we have out here now. And but this spot is actually one of my favorite spots because it's in the shade. It's never really too hot here, but and you also get the view of almost the entire lake. So it's definitely one of my favorite places. But I'm glad I got to join you today. I'm glad I got to share this with you, even if it is by video.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like a beautiful place where you can go to for some peace, and especially now that the church is now built there, I think that's amazing too. So you get to go there, even now for church too. So finding peace with the Prince of Peace.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we get to be fishers of men while being fisher men and women out here because we all love to fish out here. It's all fun.
There you go. So look at that, spiritually fishing for men or figuratively fishing for men, and then physically fishing for
That's right.
fish. So I love that. So today's topic is actually going to be on a topic that a lot of people frown upon nowadays, I feel like. So the topic of today is actually going to be on virginity. So the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because of virginity is something people don't like the idea of remaining a virgin. But I'm going to come out of the closet and say that I am a virgin. And Caitlin's notified me and told me that she is a virgin as well. So we are proud to be virgins. Not everybody is proud to, say that they're a virgin. But I got a couple, or no, actually, like 3 or 4 questions that I want to ask regarding virginity. So I'm actually going to go ahead and get into this first question. So my first question is, why have you decided to remain a virgin?
Well, it's not always been technically a decision of mine. Back in high school, when everybody's pressured back then, whether you were in high school when I was in school, whether you were in high school 50 years ago when I, I don't know if my mother was in high school then or not, but long time ago. Or nowadays, there's so many pressures, and I think it's even more so now. Because at least back when, and this is going to sound terrible, but at least back when like my mom was in school, when I was in school, there was some kind of accountability because when people knew that you were not, ooh, it's a bug, when people knew that you were not, or that you tended to sleep around, um, you kind of got labeled. And I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying I condone people being labeled in the ways that they were labeled, or people being judged in those ways. But it was definitely, you always have those kinds of pressures. Um, when I was in high school, there was one guy that I was super, super interested in. Like, we were really good friends to begin with. So it's not like, I just thought he was hot or something. Like, he was just a really great guy. He's still a great guy. Him and his wife are precious. They have the sweetest little baby. But I kind of liked him back then, and um, he was not one of the ones that would be like, well, if you want to be with me, then you have to sleep with me. He was not like that at all. He told me that one of the things he admired in me then was that I didn't do that. And so I kind of was like, okay, I'm not going to, if any other guy, which there was one guy that did want that. But I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that kind of girl because this guy likes that. And then when him and the girl that he's married to now started dating, it was kind of like, oh, well, the guy, the only boyfriend I've ever had. I was 15 we didn't ever date. We were just a couple, but he kind of came back into my life, and it was the sweetest, sweet little, you look so beautiful today and stuff like that, and he would always try to sneak those things in there. And, he would snuggle really close. And the next thing kind of making a pass. And in those moments, I just felt uncomfortable. Um, but around that time, it wasn't necessarily that I was like, oh, I'm never going to do this. I was probably, of course, I was also pre Jesus in my life too. I went to church and stuff, but I wasn't really a Christian. I wasn't saved till I was 19. So when I was 19 and I surrendered my life to Jesus, I was, just tired of living my life the way I was living it. Um, that was one of the things that I was talking to one of the girls from the basement actually about. Me and Jenna, her name was Jenna. I hope it's okay that I say her name on here, but we were talking one day, and she told me, she was like, well, that's something. We ended up getting on the subject of that, and she said that she wished that she had been one because when she turned her life over to Jesus, that was one thing that she felt like that couldn't be changed, couldn't be made right. It was one thing that she could not go back on. And she told me that she admired that in me. And I was like, well, I don't think it's that big of a deal, kind of trying to diminish it a little bit. And she was like, no, the Bible is really clear on it. The Bible is really very specific about it. And so I started digging into it, and I talked to Jesus, and I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this life, if I'm going to try to walk this Christian life the way that you would have me walk it, it's going to have to start here, and it's going to have to start with this because it is such a, almost like a controversial topic. Like you said, it's almost frowned upon nowadays. People say, well, you need to know if y'all are compatible in bed. If you're compatible in the way God makes you compatible, then you'll be compatible in the bedroom too. But I mean, I honestly believe that if you're with the person, and if you marry the person that God has for you, then God will take care of that area in y'all's marriage because you have honored him in that way. I was 19 19, almost 20, when I officially made the decision that they was gonna have to, in the words of Beyonce, they was gonna have to put a ring on it before I ever did anything like that. Just because I learned that that is something that God made sex, and he made it specifically for husband and wife. He made it specifically for, not, and it's not, people say, oh, God made it for reproductive purposes. God could have chosen literally any way he wanted for for people to reproduce. Um, and he chose sex as a way to as the way to do that. And so, but he also chose that for a husband and wife. He chose that for just the husband and wife. He didn't choose it for a husband and wife and mistress. He didn't choose it for a boyfriend and girlfriend. He didn't choose it for um, a high school girl or a high school guy, not high school, college girl or college guy to do it with just whoever they wanted to, because they were drunk or whatever reason. So no matter what situation I've been in, that's one of the reasons why I've never been huge on drinking, because I never wanted to get the mindset where I didn't know what was going on, because I didn't want that to possibly be taken from me, because that is one of the few things that I feel like I, as an individual person, have to give to my future husband. And, I had somebody ask me one day, well, what happens if you're 30 years old? What happens if you end up not married? I said, well, then I guess I'll die a virgin. I mean, but I made that decision because I want to be the woman of God that I should be, to show his love and his grace and his mercy, and to show that it's not by my strength, it's by his strength, because there are so many temptations. And I'm proud to say that I'm a virgin, but I'm also humble enough to say that if it wasn't for Jesus, then I wouldn't be one.